Right, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. So here we are again on the first Saturday of the month. We come down here to have some truth telling because we know the media and the government want to avoid talking about certain issues. So we've come down to talk about the issues that no one else wants to talk about. And worse than that, they actually want to shut us up. They don't want us to talk at all, and therefore they've introduced legislation to make it harder and harder to get our voice heard. So today we are actually got a very special speaker, Michael Griffith, and where's he gone? He's right behind me. And talking about the topic of not being heard. Michael, do you remember the occasion when I was trying to play a video clip of this beautiful girl, Dazelle, and the Commissioner of Police and Inspector Manus Walsh at the time refused us to play a soundbite of Dazelle. And they said, no, you are not allowed, her voice must not be heard in the streets of Perth. At the time, she was in an ICU bed in hospital, literally dying. So I took the Chief Commissioner of Police, there's a picture of him somewhere, and that was only one of 5 times I took him to the State Administrative Tribunal, and we went into mediation, and guess what? They caved. So when they knew if it actually went to court, they would lose. So you stand up to bullies, and when you stand up to bullies, they eventually will cave. So we were then able to play the voice of Dazelle in the streets of Perth. And today, I believe it's very close to her birthday.
Yeah, it's about 4 days out.
4 days out. All right.
A few years ago, we were brought, this young woman here, Dazelle, her plight was brought to our attention. When she was about 11 years old, she was a very healthy young girl from the Philippines. And she had to take the Dazelle vaccine, which she was happy to do, but it gave her leukemia. And the leukemia that it gave her actually attacked her lungs. It gave this growth thing in her lungs. So she did chemotherapy, but she had this growth thing in her lungs, which meant that she had to take a double lung transplant. She was 16 or 17 at the time. And they told her the only way she got a double lung transplant was if she took all her vaccinations again. So she took all the vaccinations except the COVID jab, which wasn't out yet. And she took all of them again, even though they'd given her leukemia. And then they wanted her to take the COVID jab. And she refused. She said she had a voice inside of her saying, don't take it. And she decided to follow it. Now, she was hoping that what would happen is that the medical system would back down and just allow her on the list. She actually said to me when I was in hospital with her that what she wants is a chance to fight. She just wanted to be on the operating table. If she died on the operating table, getting the transplant, well, at least she tried. At least she died fighting. Instead, she was just left alone, not alone, but left in a hospital room with her family and other people coming to visit her for 2 years, and then she died. All because she wouldn't take a jab, which is now even being proven that they're not giving it to 18-year-olds now. So now she couldn't even get it because the same health system that refused to put her on the list has now changed their tune and said it's not suitable for people her age. So she was just left to die. This week also, we've lost another woman called Vicky who needed a heart transplant, but the same deal. She had a sense that she didn't want to take the COVID jab. She didn't take it, and so she couldn't get on the list. She went to India. In India, they had no problem giving her a heart transplant. They couldn't understand why the Australians would be bothered whether she was vaccinated or not. But unfortunately, by the time she got to India, it was a bit too late. So we've lost her. And what this shows us now moving forward is the health department isn't so much interested in our health, but our compliance. And what happens now, if you look at any country that faces tyranny, what gets them deeper and deeper and deeper into tyranny is compliance. Is not having the courage to speak out when something is seen as wrong. And I'll show you the effect of tyranny in Australia. If you want to see it, you say, where is it? I'll show you where it is. Pre-COVID, and maybe about 10 years ago, Australians were famous for having great hearts, being really hardworking, even though people said we were lazy, but we're hardworking, we had great hearts, we loved our country, and we took the piss. We loved making fun of each other. But it wasn't hard, we didn't hate each other, it was just a gift we had. Paul Hogan was the epitome of it. That's why we sold him to the world. We weren't selling one comedian, we were selling Australia, and Paul Hogan was the ambassador of that. And what he was selling was the sign, throw another shrimp on the barbie, which meant come on down and join the party. Well, our generation now, thanks to these 5 years of silence and compliance and hate speech, that poster would read, throw another shrimp on the barbie and your neighbour under a bus. We don't joke and laugh anymore because we are self-filtering. We've got hate speech laws that are vague, we don't understand, so we're too scared that we might get in trouble if we say something at work and we might lose our job, or we might be kicked out of a family group, which happens, all because we're doing free speech. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but free speech for these beautiful people here, free speech and freedom of choice are the parents to another freedom that they can't enshrine into a constitution. They are the parents of another freedom called the freedom to be you. Now, you might not feel it because basically we've had a few years now where they're trying to make us humans feel like we're the virus on the planet, like we're the problem, like we're not worthy to be alive. We've seen this in country towns, especially Australia's, because I live on the road going town to town. There were country towns where on Australia Day, not one Australian flag was being flown. It's because, oh, it's a shame. We're ashamed now to be ourselves. So we're actually teaching our kids, you've got to be ashamed to be Australian, where before we weren't. And all this comes down through compliance. You see it and you think this shouldn't be the case. I should just fly my flag, but I might get in trouble, so I won't. I'll err away from conflict to silence. And what happens with that is you suddenly lose something you didn't even realize was valuable until it's gone. And that's your identity as a nation. And once you lose your identity as a nation, it's very hard to fight to defend something because you don't know what you're fighting for. So our future, this is what it's, I know it's going to sound a bizarre concept, our future is actually written in our past because that's our identity in our past and that affects the quality of our future going forward. At the moment, our future is gone. These last 5 years, this past of the 5 years, we have forgotten who we are. We're too scared to be who we know we are. So we're just almost non-player characters just to stay safe. And unfortunately, if you've got an army of non-player characters, they can't rally the anger and the determination, the purpose they need to wrench back their future so they can give their grandkids a future and an Australia worth fighting for, like our grandfathers fought for our quality of our liberty. And moving forward now, what I see in Australia everywhere is value. We all complied because we had things we wanted to keep. It's like being on that hill in the Bible. I'm not a religious man, but I know the Mount Sinai Bible, the Mount Sinai story. There's Jesus on the mountain, and the devil offers him everything. Well, pretend the devil put you on the mountain. They said, look, you can keep your job. You can keep your family status. You can keep this, you can keep that. And we won't ostracize you as an anti-vaxxer or a cook or anything else, just as long as you give us one little thing, your compliance or your soul. And then once you do that, it's very, very, very hard to get it back because you need supreme courage and you need to realize the value of something. And that value is you. You might feel worthless, but that's an absolute lie. That's the con. You don't have the power, you are the power. All you have to do is realize how unique you are and how special you are, how you've never existed before and will never exist again. You are built from abundant miracles in an ocean of miracles. That's how valuable you are. And you have to make a choice with all that value, all that worth. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to shine like a beacon of hope so other people can follow you? And maybe we could all take our children to a better future? Or are you going to dim and suppress your light just that you don't get in trouble, and the future will be darker because of it? We are at a crossroads in Australia now where we, the people, have the right to decide what our future will be, but we haven't got the courage to defend that right. And this is what these people are here to do today. I'm telling you, the future is unwritten because the past is unwritten. We have to rediscover who we are as a people, what our value system is, and not what we will fight for, but what we are prepared to die for. And if you think that sounds ridiculous, then you just go to every suburb in every town and see the shrines we built for our grandfathers who did that fight so that we could be Australians. And we grew up in their identity. We grew up the proud children of these Anzacs. But we have neglected, we have betrayed their obligation or their sacrifice. And that is why we are all lost. But we can be redeemed. Because one thing I know about the soul of a country, the soul of a people, is that the soul is built for redemption. And all it means is that you just say no to laws that don't make sense. And at the moment, we are in a country where a lot of laws don't make sense. Hate speech is not about curling hate speech. Hate speech is just about silencing you so that you feel, instead of feeling like an empowered human being, come here to make the world a better place, you are just a non-player character through a voluntary choice. We're here to hopefully make you or inspire you to make a better choice and be who you're meant to be, an architect of the future.
Well done. Thank you so much, Michael. Michael travels around in a bus.
1987 Toyota Coaster bus.
Okay, I've driven one of those in the army when I was in the army. Okay, so not the most comfortable vehicles I've ever been in. So, Michael...
That's because you're tall.
So, I've got a few quotes. I want you to pick one of them, and I want you to... you're a bit of a poet, or a bit of a philosopher. I want you to take one of these comments. You can choose which one and run with it for just a few minutes, okay? You haven't been prepared. I haven't told you what these are.
Wow.
Okay, cometh the hour, cometh the man. Trust the experts. He that is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone. Do you remember the term, we are all in this together? How can we apply that to our tribe and the situation that we're facing today? Or they meant it for evil, God meant it for good.
I'll go with the cometh the hour, cometh the man. I was actually at the Shrine of Remembrance where they shot Australians.
The same freedoms that our grandparents died and fought and died for. That's all we're here for.
They're throwing stuff now, and okay, they're shooting. They're now shooting. This is fucking Australia.
It was Tony Abbott came along and actually said it was one of the most disgraceful things in our history. And the reason we were at the shrine is that they had armoured cars in the streets of Melbourne. We've got photographs of them shooting us.
Stay together! Don't stay together!
So if you decided you didn't want to be a part of the lockdowns, or you wanted to protest against it, there was no other way to protest. The mainstream media weren't covering our stories, the politicians wouldn't listen to us, and so and we were getting censored on Facebook. So we went to the streets, which was our democratic right. The Deputy Police Commissioner actually said We have a democratic right to protest. The Black Lives Matter protest actually did a protest a few weeks before us in Melbourne in the height of the COVID era, and the police actually got down on their knees and said they would never again do police violence. And in fact, they did. They actually shot people. They shot people with rubber bullets while being dressed up like stormtroopers. But what I found in those marches was giants. I found old ladies who were in their 80s who were actually going down there and protesting for their grandkids' future. So this little stupid idiot can swag a little tail at the thing and be an inconsequential little human being. Her grandmother was fighting for her right to do that. And there was other people there too. There was young people, young Christians trying to fight for the right. I think one of the most beautiful things was, I don't know if you can imagine this, but imagine a line of police, just 2 or 3 across, all with their weapons ready to go. And in front of them was a deaf young man, a young Christian who wanted the churches opened. And he stood there defiantly before them. I also met another lady called Mary. She was 75 years old, and she's famous now. You might not know her, but you will in the future. And she wore the cape. She was a big woman, about 6'2". She wore the Australia flag as a cape. And she was asking us, because we were getting pepper sprayed, she was going up to those who've been pepper sprayed, asking if they're okay, trying to help. Later on in the day, she got in front of a police charge. She didn't know how she got there. She was just following the protest. Anyway, they charged up at her. And I asked her later, is the reason you didn't run away because you knew that Victorian police, Australian men would not hurt a woman of your age? She was about 75. And she said, that's exactly what I took for granted. I took it for granted the police wouldn't hurt me because I was a grandmother. But one cop pushed her down to the ground and then pepper sprayed her, and then another police officer pepper sprayed her, and they walked off and they left her suffering on the ground. Then 6 other police officers passed her, and then finally a 7th cop passed her, and he stopped, and he got down, and he demanded other cops come over and clean her. And she told me, even though she's too frightened to speak now, that man restored her faith in humanity. And that's what we're actually fighting now. You might not feel it because everything is so far away, but in actual fact, there is a war against humanity at the moment. And one of the weapons of that war is to make you feel irrelevant, is to make you do things like pretend you're an animal because you're too embarrassed to be a human being. Where in actual fact, being a human being is actually a gift from the gods. It's the most wonderful thing you could be. And if you don't feel that, it is because you are controlled by whoever is controlling and bringing all this out. How'd that go?
Thank you, Michael. So I'm going to open it up to everyone here. Who here has a question that they would like to ask Michael? Has anyone here have an open mic here? Has anyone got a question? Most of you know Michael from his travels, from his podcast, Cafe Lockdown. So do we have a quick question, not a statement, please?
There we go.
Michael, what do you think of the statement, WA is a very compliant population, said by that guy,
Mark McGowan.
Mark McGowan, who, if you don't know how many slips I've done in my mind, but he's a family man and I wouldn't do it to his family, but.
I think Australia is the same. We've had, since the Second World War, we've had several decades of abundance. And what that has made us is into individualists. So instead of working as a collaborative, we actually think, what's in it for me? So a lot of people bought houses and second houses, and they've got wealthy and they've got rich. And that time is coming to an end. There's a famous play by Chekhov called The Cherry Orchard, and that's where we are now. We've been conned. The corporations have taken the wealth. Our politicians are just puppets to that. And the people are still got their little mound of dirt, and they want to protect that mound of dirt. And what they've decided, the best way to protect it is to comply. But the trouble is, the cost of living is going up. People are going to go hungry soon. Once they go hungry, I think you'll see the era of compliance come to an end, because that'll be the end of the social contract. So we're very close to a different Australia. And I think hopefully we're close to a different Australia, but people, it's not just arcing up to the government, but finally doing something, asking questions and demanding answers. Why do we give our gas away for free? Why should this war in Iran bother us? We're sitting on so much oil and gas. We should be able to be self-sufficient. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we leaving our children $1 trillion debt? Now, John Howard gave away the gas, but in the 1980s, they've done mathematics since then. I've done the math since then of how much gas he's given away. It equates to almost $1 trillion. So we've given Japan $1 trillion worth of gas for free, and we've left the bill to our children who are basically shaking their asses with a dog's tail coming out for some reason. But that's what we've done. We are the generation that's betrayed the generation following us. And we don't have to do it. We can change, but we're not going to change unless we start asking questions and demanding more out of it. And like even to have a Prime Minister who answered a question would be nice.
All right. Yeah, question number 2.
Hi. When all the Chinese New Year decorations that have been in purple for the past few weeks, and the Chinese display that was, I think, a disgrace at the museum and all the people here, I'm worried that when Anzac Day comes in April, they'll make us pay tribute to Chinese soldiers and they'll play completely and forget about the authors.
So let's add to that. Has Australia been sold out to other countries, other powers?
Well, we were in the town of Clare in South Australia. It's a very old town. And when we went there, there wasn't, on Australia Day, there wasn't one Australian flag flying, except once. And that was in a chemist, and the chemist was owned by a new Indian migrant. So the only person flying a flag in the town of Clare on Australia Day was an Indian migrant. And we actually walked around the shopping centre with a little flag of Australian flag sticking out of our head. And I might have well walked around with a sign that said I've got leprosy, because everyone was terrified. And they're terrified of patriotism. It's almost like they're ashamed to be Australian. So I think this is on purpose. They're pushing that, they're banning, they don't want us to be proud of who we are, because if we're proud of who we are and willing to defend it, it's impossible to control us. So that you have to take away our pride in our country.
Narrative of rectangles.
Albo, I don't understand Albo at all.
Okay, so I don't know if you know, this is my great-great-grandfather, and talking about the police attacking the citizens. Back at the Eureka Stockade, the police with over 300 and soldiers attacked the miners, and they killed 22 of them. And then they gathered up another 13 of them, and the intention was to find them guilty of treason and then hang them all. Well, my great-great-grandfather stood up and he defended the 13 miners, and everyone got acquitted. So that was a case of where the government attacked the people. And it happened a few years ago, and I believe they'll do it again. And they'll do it again, and they'll attack the people if you don't follow the government narrative. And with the hate speech legislation, they could actually identify our group as a hate speech group, and they could ban us. And the penalty is up to 7 years jail or 14 years jail if we're actually threatening violence. Michael, comments?
Well, I think it all comes down to what I said, value. You've got to look at the future. And is all that interests you in the future is just what you can own? Or does it interest you of who you are? To be a beacon of hope for the rest of the world, where all our different nationalities come together and we just want to live in peace. We just want to raise families or do whatever we want to do. But democracy has to be defended. And what we're seeing now after 5 years is what happens when you don't defend it. When you don't rigorously defend it, you lose. And so people now, I don't even feel like they're in a democracy. Look how the government brought out The Voice. We all said no, and then they're just bringing them in the States anyway. They're mocking us. And this is like schoolyard politics. I mean, you're a tall guy. Say you came up to me on a Monday, we were in kids in school together, and you go, give me your lunch money. And I do. And Tuesday, give me your lunch money. And I do. And you're going to keep taking my lunch money until I stand up on a stool and smack you in the face. That's the truth. And this is what we're facing now. The government does not care for us. And the reason they don't care for us is they're not frightened of us. And they need to be frightened of us. And that's how we need to change. And I don't mean frightened that we're going to kill them, but frightened that we will throw them in jail. If we question them, look at Victoria at the moment, it's $15 billion hole. Pure corruption. The machete bins, pure corruption. And we just take it. And the more you take it, the more you lose. The more you try to avoid the storm, the bigger the storm gets. It's time to go through the storm with a plan designed not for ourselves, but what sort of country do we want to leave to our kids, our grandkids? That's the goal.
Fighting words, and very much appreciated. We've got exceeded our time limit here. We are going to move down and we will continue on. Thank you so much.